Single mother works as a cleaner until she creates software that saves her boss's company. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maria Santos pushed her cleaning cart down the empty hallway of TechFlow Solutions. It was 11:47 p.m., and the 23rd floor of the Chicago high-rise was silent, except for the occasional buzz of computers left running overnight. Maria preferred it this way. No curious stares, no awkward conversations about her broken English, just her and the work that paid for Emma's school supplies and their small apartment rent. "Another late night, huh, Maria?" called out Jake, the security guard, as she passed the front desk. His voice echoed in the vast lobby with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city below. "Always the same, Jake," Maria replied with a tired smile, adjusting her blue uniform. "Someone has to make it clean for the morning people." She had been cleaning these offices for 3 years now, ever since she moved to Chicago from Phoenix, after Emma's father left them with nothing but empty promises and unpaid bills. The job at TechFlow wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and Maria had learned to find dignity in her work. Every spotless window and organized desk was a small victory, a way to provide for Emma's future. As Maria entered the main office area, she noticed the lights were still on in the corner conference room. Through the glass walls, she could see 3 figures hunched over laptops, empty coffee cups scattered across the table like casualties of a long battle. She recognized them: David Chen, the young CEO who always looked stressed; Sarah Williams, the head of operations who spoke in rapid-fire sentences; and Marcus Thompson, the lead developer who often worked until dawn. The inventory system crashed again. Sarah's frustrated voice carried through the thin walls as Maria quietly began emptying wastebaskets. "We lost the Henderson account because we couldn't track their shipment. That's 3 major clients this month, David." Maria had heard variations of this conversation before. TechFlow Solutions specialized in logistics software for retail chains, but their own inventory management system was falling apart. She had picked up enough fragments over the months to understand that the company was hemorrhaging money, losing clients who couldn't afford unreliable tracking of their products. "We need a complete overhaul," Marcus was saying, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "But rebuilding from scratch would take months we don't have, and the budget—" He trailed off, running his hands through his disheveled hair. As Maria moved closer to dust the nearby desks, she couldn't help but glance at the whiteboard covered in flowcharts and error codes. Her eyes traced the diagram, a complex web of data streams and processing nodes that looked chaotic and inefficient. Without realizing it, she found herself mentally reorganizing the flow, imagining cleaner pathways for the information to travel. Years ago, before Emma was born, Maria had been studying computer science at Arizona State University. She had always been good with patterns and logic, finding beauty in the way code could solve real-world problems. But when pregnancy forced her to choose between her dreams and her child's needs, the choice had been clear. Emma came first, always. Now, as she watched the 3 executives struggle with problems that seemed so familiar, Maria felt an old spark flickering to life. She had spent countless nights during Emma's infancy reading programming forums and tutorials online, keeping that part of her mind alive, even when her hands were busy with diapers and baby bottles. "Mom always said I should have been an engineer," Maria whispered to herself in Spanish, a habit she'd maintained to keep her mother's memory alive. She finished cleaning the area and moved on, but her mind remained fixated on the whiteboard's tangled diagram. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of routine tasks, but Maria found herself paying closer attention to the scattered papers and sticky notes left on desks. Purchase orders, client complaints, system error logs, pieces of a puzzle that painted a clear picture of TechFlow's problems. By the time she clocked out at 6 a.m., the sun was painting the Chicago skyline in shades of gold and pink, and Maria had an idea forming in her mind. Walking to the bus stop in the crisp October morning, Maria pulled out her phone and opened a note-taking app. She began sketching a rough diagram of what she had seen, her fingers moving quickly across the screen as concepts flowed from her memory of computer science classes taken over a decade ago. "Maybe," she thought as the bus rumbled through the awakening city toward Emma's school, "maybe I still remember more than I thought." Sarsem Mariti, the Emma Santos, bounced down the steps of Lincoln Elementary School, her backpack bouncing with each step. At 12, she had her mother's determined chin and bright, curious eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. Maria waved from across the street, having rushed from her day job at a local diner to make pickup time. "How was school, Mija?" Maria asked, wrapping her daughter in a quick hug before they began walking toward the bus stop. "Good. We started learning about computer programming in tech class," Emma said, her eyes lighting up. "Miss Peterson says I'm really good at it. She said thinking in code is like solving puzzles, and you know how much I love puzzles." Maria felt her heart skip a beat. Programming. What kind of programming? "Just basic stuff with Scratch right now, but Miss Peterson said some kids might get to learn real coding languages next semester." Emma looked up at her mother with excitement. "Mom, did you know that women wrote some of the first computer programs? There was this woman named Ada Lovelace who—" "I know about Ada Lovelace," Maria interrupted gently, surprised by how easily the name rolled off her tongue after so many years. Emma stopped walking and stared at her mother. "You do? How do you know about old computer stuff?" Maria hesitated. She had never told Emma about her college years, about the dreams she'd put aside. It seemed easier to let her daughter see her as just a cleaner and waitress, rather than someone who had once had bigger ambitions. But looking at Emma's curious face, she realized she might have been protecting the wrong person. "Before you were born, I studied computers in college," Maria said carefully. "I didn't finish, but I learned some things." "Really? Mom, that's amazing. Why didn't you ever tell me?" Emma's voice was filled with wonder and a hint of hurt. "Could you teach me?" Before Maria could answer, her phone buzzed with a text reminder about her evening shift at TechFlow. But instead of feeling the usual dread about another night of cleaning, she felt something different. Purpose. "Maybe," Maria said, squeezing Emma's hand, "maybe I could show you a few things." That afternoon, while Emma did homework at their small kitchen table, Maria sat with her laptop, a refurbished machine she'd bought 2 years ago for Emma's school projects. She opened a web browser and began searching for information about modern inventory management systems, her fingers moving faster as muscle memory returned. The programming languages had evolved since her college days, but the fundamental concepts remained the same. Python, JavaScript, SQL databases, the building blocks were familiar, like meeting old friends after years apart. Maria found herself drawn into tutorial videos and documentation, her mind absorbing information with surprising speed. "Mom, what are you doing?" Emma asked, looking up from her math homework. "Research," Maria replied, not entirely lying. "For work. Can I see?" Maria turned the laptop screen toward Emma, showing a simple Python tutorial. "This is code. It's like giving very specific instructions to a computer." Emma leaned in closer, studying the screen. "It looks like a secret language. In a way, it is. And once you know the secret, you can make computers do incredible things." They spent the next hour going through basic programming concepts together, Emma asking questions that pushed Maria to remember things she thought she'd forgotten. As they worked, Maria felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the joy of learning and teaching simultaneously. Later that evening, as Emma slept, Maria prepared for her night shift with a different energy. She packed her cleaning supplies along with a small notebook and pen, her mind already racing with possibilities. The problems she'd observed at TechFlow weren't unsolvable. They were just complex enough that no one had taken the time to step back and see the bigger picture. The security at TechFlow was minimal during night shifts. After Jake made his hourly rounds, Maria was essentially alone with the building's secrets. She had never abused this trust before, but tonight felt different. After completing her regular cleaning routine, Maria found herself standing in front of the conference room whiteboard, studying the chaotic flowchart with fresh eyes. Using her notebook, she began sketching alternative approaches to the inventory tracking system. What if instead of trying to patch the existing system, they rebuilt it with a modular architecture? What if they implemented real-time data synchronization instead of batch processing? The ideas flowed faster than she could write them down. Around 2 a.m., Maria made a decision that would change everything. She quietly logged into one of the development computers, using a test account she'd observed Marcus use during her cleaning rounds. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened a development environment and began translating her notebook sketches into actual code. The first few lines were hesitant, muscle memory fighting against years of dormancy. But as the night wore on, Maria found her rhythm. Line by line, function by function, she began building a prototype of what TechFlow's inventory system could become. By dawn, she had created something remarkable. Not a complete solution, but a proof of concept that demonstrated a fundamentally different approach to the company's core problem. As she logged out and returned to her cleaning cart, Maria felt exhausted, but alive in a way she hadn't felt since Emma was born. Walking home through the Chicago morning, she wondered if she was crazy to think that a night janitor could solve problems that had stumped a team of professional developers. But looking at the code she'd written in her notebook, Maria realized that sometimes the most innovative solutions come from the most unexpected places. The question now was whether she had the courage to share what she'd created. Maria stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of her small apartment, her hands still shaking from 3 cups of coffee and too little sleep. It had been a week since she'd started working on the prototype during her night shifts, and the code had grown into something she barely recognized: elegant, efficient, and potentially revolutionary for TechFlow's struggling business. Emma knocked on the bathroom door. "Mom, you're going to be late for your day job." "Coming, mija," Maria called back, splashing cold water on her face. She had been juggling her regular cleaning duties with secret programming sessions, catching maybe 4 hours of sleep between shifts. The exhaustion was catching up with her, but the excitement of creation kept her going. At the diner, Maria's movements were mechanical as she served coffee and took orders. Her mind was elsewhere, running through code logic and database structures. She had reached a crossroads. Her prototype was nearly complete, but she couldn't test it properly without access to real data and TechFlow's servers. "Maria, Table 6 is still waiting for their check," called out Betty, the day manager, snapping Maria back to reality. "Sorry, Betty, I'm just tired." "Honey, you look like you haven't slept in days. Everything okay at home?" "Emma's not sick, is she?" Maria forced a smile. "No, Emma's fine, just working on a project." That evening, as Maria helped Emma with homework, her daughter looked up from her science textbook with concern. "Mom, are you okay? You seem different lately. Distracted." Maria sat down next to Emma at their small kitchen table. The apartment felt cramped tonight, filled with the weight of secrets and possibilities. Through their window she could see the distant lights of downtown Chicago, including the building where TechFlow Solutions struggled to survive. "Emma, what would you do if you had a chance to help people, but you were scared they wouldn't take you seriously?" Emma considered this with the solemnity that only 12-year-olds could muster. "I guess I'd try anyway. Ms. Peterson always says that good ideas should be shared, even if you're nervous. Even if those people might think you're not qualified to help. Mum, remember when I wanted to join the robotics club but thought I wasn't smart enough? You told me that the worst thing that could happen was they'd say no, but if I didn't try, the answer was already no." Maria felt tears prick her eyes. Her own wisdom, reflected back through her daughter's innocent clarity, cut straight to her heart. "You're right, mija. You're absolutely right." The next morning, Maria arrived at TechFlow an hour early. Her cleaning cart sat forgotten by the elevator as she walked directly to David Chen's office. Through the glass wall, she could see him hunched over his laptop, looking even more stressed than usual. A half-eaten sandwich sat forgotten next to a stack of what looked like termination notices. Maria knocked softly on the doorframe. David looked up, surprised. "Oh, hi, Maria. You're early today. Everything all right?" "Mr. Chen, I need to talk to you about something important." David gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Of course, please sit. Is it about your work schedule? I know the night shifts are tough." Maria sat down, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "No, sir, it's about your inventory system." David's eyebrows shot up. "I'm sorry? I know this sounds crazy, but I've been listening to your meetings while I clean. I understand you're having problems with tracking and data management. Maria, I appreciate your concern, but I studied computer science in college," Maria interrupted, her voice gaining strength. "I didn't finish because I had Emma, but I never stopped learning, and I think I might have a solution to your problems." David leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from polite confusion to cautious interest. "What kind of solution?" Maria pulled out her notebook, filled with diagrams and code snippets. "Your current system tries to do everything at once. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. But what if we broke it down into smaller, specialized modules that communicate with each other?" As Maria began explaining her approach, David's posture changed. He leaned forward, asking technical questions that Maria answered with increasing confidence. 20 minutes passed without either of them noticing. "This is actually quite sophisticated," David said, studying her diagrams. "Have you built anything based on these concepts?" Maria hesitated, then made her leap of faith. "I've been working on a prototype, using the development computers after hours. I'm sorry if that was wrong, but I needed to test my ideas." David was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, the first genuine smile Maria had seen from him in months. "Show me." Tur started swarms out of the development floor at TechFlow, buzzed with an energy Maria had never seen during her night shifts. David had called an emergency meeting with Sarah and Marcus, and now the three executives sat around Marcus's workstation as Maria nervously pulled up her prototype on the large monitor. "I can't believe we're doing this," Marcus muttered, but his tone was more curious than dismissive. "A cleaning lady writing code. This feels like a movie." "Marcus," Sarah warned, shooting him a sharp look. "It's okay," Maria said quietly. "I know how it looks, but code doesn't care who writes it. It either works or it doesn't." She opened her development environment and began walking them through the architecture. Her voice was steady now, falling into the rhythm of explanation that felt as natural as breathing. This was her element, the logical beauty of well-structured code, the elegant solutions to complex problems. "The current system processes everything sequentially," Maria explained, her fingers moving across the keyboard to highlight different code sections. "But retail inventory moves in patterns, morning rushes, seasonal trends, regional variations. My system anticipates these patterns and pre-allocates resources." Marcus leaned closer to the screen, his skepticism giving way to genuine interest. "This predictive caching algorithm, how did you calculate the probability matrices?" "I used 3 years of your client data," Maria said, then quickly added, "Only anonymized transaction patterns. I never looked at specific company information." 3 years of data analysis?" Sarah asked. "When did you have time to do this?" "Every night for the past month. After Emma goes to sleep, after my cleaning shifts. I'd work until dawn, sleep a few hours, then go to my day job." David stared at Maria with something approaching awe. "You've been working 2 jobs and single-handedly developing enterprise software in your spare time." "It didn't feel like work," Maria said simply. "It felt like coming home." Marcus was now completely absorbed in the code, scrolling through functions and commenting under his breath. "This is clean, really clean. Look at this error handling. It's more robust than our current production code." "The real test is performance," Sarah said, ever practical. "Theories are nice, but can it handle real-world load?" Maria's heart raced. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. "I've built in stress testing protocols. We can simulate your peak traffic loads right now." For the next 2 hours, they ran Maria's prototype through every test they could devise. They threw complex queries at it, simulated system failures, and pushed it to process massive datasets. The little program that Maria had built in stolen moments between mopping floors performed flawlessly. "The response time is 60% faster than our current system," Marcus announced, staring at the performance metrics in disbelief. "And the memory usage is actually lower." Sarah was frantically taking notes. "If we implemented this, we could handle 3 times our current client load without upgrading hardware. The cost savings alone could save the company," David finished quietly. The room fell silent, except for the hum of computers and the distant sounds of Chicago traffic 23 floors below. Maria felt the weight of the moment, her life balanced on the edge of transformation, waiting to see which way it would fall. "Maria," David said finally, "we need to talk about compensation and employment and a dozen other things. But first, I have one question." Maria nodded, not trusting her voice. "Why? Why spend your nights helping a company that, well, that employs you to clean floors? You could have taken this idea anywhere." Maria thought about Emma, about their small apartment and second-hand furniture, about the dreams she'd buried and the ones she was just beginning to dream again. "Because I heard you in those late-night meetings. I saw how much you cared about your employees, about keeping the company alive. And because—" She paused, searching for words. "Because I wanted Emma to see that it's never too late to become who you're meant to be." David stood up and extended his hand. "Maria Santos, would you consider joining TechFlow Solutions as our lead systems architect?" As Maria shook his hand, she felt the earth shift beneath her feet. Everything was about to change: her life, Emma's future, the trajectory of their dreams. But for the first time in 13 years, she wasn't afraid of change. She was ready for it. 6 months later, Maria Santos stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of her new office on the 25th floor of TechFlow Solutions, watching the Chicago skyline glitter in the late afternoon sun. The view was different from up here, broader, more hopeful. She could see Lincoln Elementary School in the distance, where Emma would be getting out of her advanced computer science class any minute now. "Mom!" Emma's voice echoed through the office as she burst through the door, her school backpack bouncing with excitement. "Ms. Peterson said my app design was the best in the class. She wants to submit it to the state competition." Maria turned from the window and opened her arms, catching Emma in a fierce hug. At 13, Emma was getting too old for such displays of affection in public, but she never refused them when they were alone. "Tell me everything, Misha." Emma pulled out her tablet and launched into an animated explanation of her app, a program that helped students organize their homework and track their progress. As she spoke, Maria marveled at how much her daughter had grown, not just in the past months, but in confidence and ambition. "The judges are going to love it," Maria said, meaning every word. "Your logic flow is perfect, and the user interface is so intuitive." "I learned from the best," Emma grinned, then grew more serious. "Mom, do you ever miss it? Your old life, I mean, when things were simpler?" Maria considered the question carefully. Their life had changed dramatically since that morning when she'd walked into David's office. The financial security was wonderful. They'd moved to a larger apartment in a better neighborhood. Emma was in an excellent school, and Maria no longer had to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. But the changes went deeper than money. "Sometimes I miss the quiet," Maria admitted. "There was something peaceful about those night shifts, just me and my thoughts. But Emma, I don't miss the worry. I don't miss wondering if we'd have enough money for your school supplies, or if I could afford to take you to the doctor when you were sick. And now you get to teach other people how to code," Emma added, "like you taught me." That was true. Maria's role at TechFlow had evolved beyond just system architecture. David had asked her to lead a new initiative, a program that identified and trained unconventional talent within the company. Janitors, security guards, administrative assistants, anyone who showed interest and aptitude for technology could apply for Maria's mentorship program. "Speaking of teaching," Maria said, checking her watch, "we have the presentation in an hour. Are you ready?" Emma nodded eagerly. Today was special. Maria was presenting TechFlow's success story to the Chicago Tech Council, and Emma would be demonstrating the youth coding program they'd started together. It was Emma's idea to create coding workshops for kids whose parents worked in service jobs, giving them early exposure to technology careers. They took the elevator down to the main conference room, where David was setting up the presentation equipment. He smiled when he saw them, and Maria still felt a flutter of gratitude when she remembered how he'd taken a chance on her. "The mayor's office just called," David announced. "They want to feature your story in the city's economic development campaign. Chicago, where dreams take flight, or something like that." Maria laughed. "That sounds very dramatic for a woman who used to clean offices." "Who used to clean offices?" David corrected. "Now you're the architect of the system that's helped us grow by 300% this year. We've got companies calling us from all over the country wanting to license your inventory management platform." As the conference room filled with tech executives, city officials, and reporters, Maria felt a familiar flutter of nerves. Public speaking still didn't come naturally to her, but she'd learned that her story resonated with people in ways she never expected. "Ladies and gentlemen," the moderator began, "please welcome Maria Santos, lead systems architect at TechFlow Solutions, who will be sharing her remarkable journey from night janitor to tech innovator." Maria stepped up to the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. In the front row, Emma gave her an encouraging thumbs up. In the back, she spotted Jake, the security guard from TechFlow, who had enrolled in night classes after hearing about Maria's program. 2 years ago," Maria began, her voice steady and clear, "I thought my life was set. I was a single mother working 2 jobs, doing everything I could to provide for my daughter. I had dreams once, but I thought those dreams were in the past, sacrificed for more immediate needs." She clicked to the first slide, a photo of herself in her cleaning uniform, taken during a company event she'd worked. "What I learned is that dreams don't die, they just wait. They wait for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right amount of courage to bring them back to life." The presentation flowed smoothly, with Emma joining her on stage to demonstrate their youth coding program. Watching her daughter confidently explain complex programming concepts to a room full of adults, Maria felt a profound sense of completion. This was what success looked like. Not just personal achievement, but the ability to lift others up along the way. After the formal presentation, a young woman approached Maria during the reception. She looked nervous but determined. "Ms. Santos, my name is Carmen Rodriguez. I work in food service at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but I've been teaching myself web development online. I was wondering, do you think someone like me could really make it in tech?" Maria looked at Carmen, really looked at her. She saw herself 2 years ago, full of hidden potential and buried dreams. "Carmen, can I ask you something? When you're writing code, how does it make you feel?" Carmen's eyes lit up. "Like I'm solving puzzles. Like everything makes sense. Like I'm home." Maria smiled and handed Carmen her business card. "Call me Monday. Let's talk about your future." As the reception wound down and the guests began to leave, Maria and Emma walked back to their car in the parking garage. The Chicago evening was crisp and clear, full of possibility. "Mom," Emma said as they drove through the city streets toward their new home, "what do you think Dad would say if he could see us now?" It was a question Emma asked sometimes, and Maria had learned to answer it honestly. Emma's father had left when things got difficult, unable to handle the responsibility of family life, but Maria had found strength in that abandonment, discovering that she was capable of more than she'd ever imagined. "I think he'd be surprised," Maria said finally. "But Emma, it doesn't matter what he'd think. What matters is that we know who we are and what we're capable of. Do you think we'll inspire other people, like the way some people inspired us?" Maria thought about Carmen, about Jake studying for his programming certification, about the dozens of emails she'd received from women who said her story gave them courage to pursue their own dreams. "I think we already have, Mija. I think we already have." As they pulled into their driveway, Maria looked up at the stars barely visible through Chicago's light pollution. Somewhere out there, other dreams were waiting to be awakened. Other talents were waiting to be discovered. And for the first time in her life, Maria Santos felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, not just as a successful programmer or a role model, but as a mother who had shown her daughter that it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. The cleaning cart was long gone, but the determination that had carried her through those lonely night shifts remained. Only now, instead of scrubbing floors, Maria was building futures. Her own, Emma's, and countless others who dared to dream beyond their circumstances. In the end, that was the most beautiful code of all.